Welcome into the Kevin and Jason Show, episode 1. I'm one of your hosts, Kevin Masseri, here with Jason Shannon. Really excited to get this podcast going. It is presented by Cover One as your podcast experts. Here we're going to be an inaugural show talking about, kind of our experiences, some news coming out today out of One Bills Drive. I'm going to get into that a little bit. What to watch for as camp opens and the embedded series that came out yesterday. Jason, how are you doing?
Kevin, I couldn't be any more excited to be here right now. We took a little hiatus. I took a large hiatus from the pod game, but I'm ready to be here. And I was really excited when you said, hey, Cover One needs a Kevin and Jason show. I'm a Kevin, you're a Jason. Let's do this. So I'm all in right now.
Yeah, and I mean, first I wanted to kind of highlight our experiences together. I mean, the show isn't raw. I mean, we're coming from experience from, 2011. We had Buddy Nixon, one of our first endeavors, where we were basically slight humor, but still pretty opinion and commentary. Really love the logo Jason made on clip art or some version of Illustrator. I can't remember. Paint. It was Paint. Okay. All right. We did Paint, MS Paint, to come out with the Buddy Nixon. It was a cartoon picture of Richard Nixon with a Buddy Nix photo, headshot. Is that what it was?
Yeah, I made a Buddy Nix masquerade mask out of his eyeballs and surrounding skin and put it over the face of Richard Nixon and made Buddy Nixon, which was pretty much the whole concept of the site.
Yeah, and it was kind of in the early days of blogging. I mean, not to say we were the first. I mean, I still think there was like The Kick is Good, Buffalo Wins.
There was stuff long before.
I mean, yeah, rumblings, but it was still, before Twitter, wasn't it?
It was around the beginning of Twitter. I believe I joined Twitter in 2009, but it certainly hadn't picked up the heat that it was at this point.
Yeah.
It was definitely probably before we were ready for the big time.
Definitely. It was a good experience. It was a good, for you country listeners out there, it was like a good Chris Ledoux to Garth Brooks type of experience for us. So I think that's kind of what, we rolled with to kind of get our feet wet, try to blog as well, get podcasts. We had, Toe Fenton on it. We had Blake the Blizzard. We had some good guests. I mean, I think even, Rob Quinn was on it at one point before, kind of transitioning. But then from there, we kind of went to a Forged in Buffalo, and then the podcast. We did a Buffalo Bros for a few times, didn't we? We did a Buffalo Bros podcast through Forged in Buffalo, transitioning into Building the Herd, which would be kind of where we really started to hunker down. Me, you, Rob. A couple other names are in on that Building the Herd podcast. That led me to going to Cover One podcast following that, Building the Herd experience, and then right into Locked On Bills, which was, a great experience throughout the days. I had a credential in 2017's training camp. We have an interesting relationship with the Bills and their credentials right now as they're being hit and miss on who they're credentialing. But that was a great experience for me in 2017. Jason was on Locked On Bills, for all the Locked On Bills listeners, now by Joe Marino. He's still heading that podcast. It was Fairburn, then myself, and then Joe Marino over there for Locked On Bills. Great show. Really, really good short, power punching episodes. And then that led us into this experience with the Kevin and Jason show, kind of a little more autonomy here, Jason. And that's, I think we've worked the ranks of trying to do different shows over the course of 8 years. And I think we got to figure it out, right?
Yeah, I think, obviously we might be a little bit rusty right now, but we definitely have figured out like what kind of show we want to do at this point. And I definitely think sometimes a longer format, maybe a couple less days of the week. We're going to do 2 days a week here. Mondays and Thursdays is what it's looking like right now. Those are the days that we're free. I'm working a lot. Kevin's a new father and doing his work responsibilities, but we're still going to give it to you. And I do think that this is going to be a very free format, but we're going to still give you the Bills knowledge. So I'm really excited about that. And also, I think that maybe me and you do underestimate this a little bit because it's just like part of our lives. But like, I've known you for half of my life. We've been having this conversation for 16 years now.
Yeah, sounds right. We started recording it maybe halfway through our friendship, and then to this day now, call it 15, 16 years later, we have, I think, a pretty good realization of agreeing on a bunch of stuff, disagreeing on a bunch of stuff, and somewhere in the middle on some stuff. So that's kind of what works here for the Kevin and Jason show. That's what you'll expect. So this isn't just some venture that we're starting off. This does come with some years of experience. I've met some great people in the media industry. I've got to interview McDermott. There's stuff that I've learned along the way that works and what doesn't work, and obviously to have the backing of Cover One to have them there, which, probably one of the best independent blogs out there. Really, maybe not, people that aren't acquired by The Athletic, and Eric is even a contributor over at The Athletic. So, that should be telling in itself, but been great to be here. And it's really great to do this episode 1. I can't really remember the last time I did an episode 1 for a starting show. So really appreciate all you tuning in, and really, anyone that follows my Twitter at Kevin Messeri, you can follow, our new show handle, which would be at Kevin Jason Show, just as it sounds, KevinJasonshow, Kevin Jason Show, Twitter, and it's been plugged a little bit already, but you can find kind of the tweets of this, and maybe we'll do some contests and some giveaways, but tweet at us if you want to see the Buddy Nixon logo. We're going to have to kind of dig that out of an archive somewhere, but tweet at me or the show if you want to see that Buddy Nixon archive image. I think it's pretty good. It's pretty funny. We were in half considering bring Mr. Nixon back at some point to make an appearance. So we'll see if that happens. But as we get into this a little bit, Jason, there was some news coming out of One Bills Drive with some injuries, notably to Tyler Kroft, got hurt, I think, pretty much in the first play of spring OTAs. Jeremiah Sirles got hurt there as well, both going on the PUP list, and then Frank Gore coming in with a non-football injury, which was said by the AP to be minor. Are you worried about any of those? Is Tyler Kroft going to carry into the season? Any of those three jump out to you?
Yeah, we've already been prepared for Kroft for a little while now, and I've been a little bit worried, and I know we've been kind of cycling tight ends in and out of here, and we've tried out a few players. But if he's not ready till, right before the season, he's not a guy that's been putting up 800, 900-yard seasons every year. He's on a new team. He's had a history of some injuries. You'd like to see him have a full camp to really feel good about him as the starting TE1. And now I think he's going to really start behind the 8 ball. I'm not saying that he's going to have a terrible season. He might come in and get right into the thick of things. They seem to think that he's a very good fit for this offense and made him a priority target and paid him probably what the market value was for him, but seemingly maybe even overpaid for him a little bit to get him in here, as you would do in free agency most of the time.
Yeah, definitely. And it wasn't a move I originally liked the most. I think I was even on Team Jesse James at the time. I can't believe, I thought he was a little bit overpaid for his one season 2 years ago. We like that, Jason. We've talked about that before off air, about McDermott and I guess Bean's ability to like a player coming off of a big season, coming off injury. Is that a theme?
Yeah, they seem to do that. Trent Murphy wasn't even coming off of he was coming off a big season. Yeah, I guess are you saying big season and then injury and then signing him?
And then big signing. Yep.
Yeah. I think they know that that's where maybe they're going to try to find a market, inefficiency, I guess. They've done it. They took a chance on EJ Gaines, which, 3/4 worked that season that he was there. And I think they're just generally we know what our scouts know what they're doing. We're going to buy low and we're going to hope for the best. And you even saw with Kevin Johnson here, he hasn't stayed healthy at all. I wouldn't be shocked if he's cornerback 2 going into next season.
Yeah, he could very well at least be in the top of the depth chart there at the cornerback position. But, what the Bills ended up doing because of Tyler Kroft was go out and give Lee Smith 3 years for $9 million in May. Pure blocking tight end really isn't a replacement for Kroft, but does add to depth to that unit. Maybe frees up a Tommy Sweeney a little bit. Jason Kroom's there in and out of OTAs with injuries. And then, Dawson Knox, a guy who's never caught a touchdown pass at any level, is technically their tight end 1 right now. So it's an interesting room from, veterans like Lee Smith, who I think will get it done. He was always a good blocking tight end who went out and got paid by Oakland, especially during that time. Did his thing and then obviously found his way back to the Bills here for 3 for $9, which is a pretty big deal in May. And then Dawson Knox, obviously the Bills spent a 3rd round pick, as we'll feature in the embedded segment a little bit later. seeing how much Brandon Beane wanted to come up and get him along with Singletary there. And then Tommy Sweeney, a guy that played well with all the injuries at the tight end position before Lee Smith came in, when Kroom was banged up, when obviously Kroft wasn't playing. It was pretty much Knox and Sweeney as your tight ends on the team. So Sweeney's going to get a lot of action here, really vying for that final roster spot. But, I mean, pretty big news. I mean, the bigger news, Frank Gore a little bit banged up. Probably won't be out for long, but that really gives my guy TJ Yeldon some much needed snaps. I mean, McCoy's going to get a little bit of his, but you're really looking at a Singletary TJ Yeldon type of room. And then you got my guy Christian Wade as well, who news really great out of him. And if anyone's watching All or Nothing with the Panthers, you can see that international program can work. They got a rotational defensive end out of their international program a couple years ago, but he's featured exclusively on the All or Nothing with the Panthers. So check that out. So it is interesting to see that these guys just aren't caught and forgotten about. I mean, he's contributing on an NFL roster, and that's F.A. Obata, the right defensive end over there in Carolina. So this program can work. I think Wade is in a pretty good situation, especially if Gore's banged up at all. They have a roster exemption for him. So what do you think of the running back room with the news of Gore? Well, he wasn't going to really do anything anyways.
Yeah, the more miles that you put on Frank Gore, the better during this point of the season. Unless he's really fighting to make the team and you really need to see what he's got, I don't see any reason why you would work him or overwork him during this point, especially when you have guys behind him like, your third-round rookie, Devin Singletary, a new addition in TJ Yeldon, who I really like what he could bring in the passing game and sort of as an all-around running back, which I feel is like something that we've kind of lacked, especially behind McCoy. I know people say, well, McCoy's your pass catcher, but he's got to come off the field sometimes, and considering the way he's been beat up and the way he limps off the field a lot just based on overwork, I think that Yeldon's a good guy to bring in. And then, you got a wild card with Wade. I don't anticipate any way that he makes the team, but I think he's a guy that you could continue to teach just the game of football in general. And you maybe having an athlete like that around is, he's going to be a little pet project for a little while, but I don't think he's going to make the team. But in general, I think there's just enough behind McCoy and Gore where you just don't need to see those guys in this offseason. So if Gore's got to take a little time to heal up a little bit, I'm all for it.
Yeah, and I mean, gone should be the days of needing, Perry to play or Marcus Murphy. I know Sonoris Perry's going to be a pure special teamer, but Marcus Murphy showed out in training camp. I was even excited for him. Then the lights came on, and I just didn't think he was stellar.
You're a big time hater.
Yeah, I liked him in training camp too. So it isn't like this. I had this vendetta against him or something. I think he deserved to make the team. It wasn't anything like that. But he came in when it mattered, and he just wasn't very good. For all the years we've had these running backs that have tried to make a team and never really got onto it, the Joik Bells of the world going to play in Detroit. Marcus Murphy did play well and did finally, come up and play on the team, but he just didn't show out to me. I didn't like what I saw from him. But I think TJ Yeldon's a better version. I mean, that's kind of what you're looking for out of a Yeldon, a pass catcher, a guy that can, run at a high yards per carry. I think he's going to be a good contributing factor to McCoy and Frank Gore and Devin Singletary. So yeah, I just don't want to use running back special teams players anymore, Jason. That's what I'm asking for here.
Yeah, I agree, and I wish it was more of a running back, receiving backfield, blocker on pass down sort of guy rather than special teamers. I'd rather have your safeties or your backup linebackers who we're already using for that in that position. And in general, I do think that we've been trying out the undrafteds and whatnot for third running backs for back of the roster guys, and people say, hey, you don't need to spend on running back. But I do think that there is a minimum amount of talent that you should have to be on an NFL roster. And some guys just don't have it. It's not to say that you should be drafting or you should be spending a first round pick on every one of your guys. But if you're just digging from, the guys who have been cut, who have been waived, who didn't make teams, you're probably not going to strike gold. People have done it before, but you can't count on that. So I do like the minimum level of talent that, at least our first four running backs have right now.
I mean, I agree with that. And I just think I'm just dying. We've talked about this again off, another thing, a topic we've talked about offline, the special teams positions. I think your rookies and your undrafted free agents who make the team need to be your contributors on special teams. Look, you had Danny Crossman last year, claim 10, 12 spots, 14 spots a year, which is fine. Special teams is a third of the game, but these guys going to contribute on the other side of on their actual position groups. And then special teams units sucked. So, I mean, at the end of the day, this is why like these guys need to be able to play special teams, but from other position groups and not use a valuable running spot. But this could all get flipped on its head, Jason, if Brandon Beane does his August thing where he goes out and acquires someone like Melvin Gordon or something, which is far fetched, but not out of the realm of what this guy likes to do and how he likes to build, especially, spoiler alert, with another 50 to 60 million available next year and not a ton of holes like they had this year. I mean, they're going to have a lot of more flexibility pretty much with their offensive line locked up this year. They're obviously quarterback locked up, spent some money on receiver. They might spend that on the draft next year. So watch out for a training camp deal there. And kind of the last name on the list was Sirles. I mean, he's vying for like an 8th or 9th spot. This regime really likes him. I mean, they brought him in last year. He's stuck on, pretty much in the active game day roster, played a little bit. I mean, it's a guy they like. So although he's hurt and most people probably like, he's cut anyways, don't count out Jeremiah Sirles. He's a guy that was brought back again. He knows, I think he knows Spencer Long from his days together. So these are guys that they've specifically picked to compete, and I'm not going to count him out as a guy that can't make the top 9 on this offensive line. So not a big deal, though. I mean, you're going to still see that the tackle's pretty much locked up with Ford and Dawkins for now, and then Secchi in there as well. So you're going to have those 3 names, but Jeremiah Sirles is still vying with his versatility to kind of be the last name on the roster, fighting against the Vlad Ducas's, Connor McDermott's, Ike Bodeger's, of the world, and DeAndre Wesley, a guy they plucked off practice squad after letting him go last year. So these are offensive line names that they've really seemed to have a liking for, Jason. So we'll get into that as we kind of transition into training camp and what we're watching for. I mean, that's going to be the first thing, obviously, right? Who's going to be your top 9 offensive linemen, and it's really how it could go a multitude of ways, including, Jeremiah Sirles being one of those 9 names, or, completely going younger here. Keep even, Russell Bodines and the Connor McDermott could still sneak on. These are guys that this regime still wanted to hang on to. So I think it's going to be an interesting group, especially with the new offensive line coach. Kind of what's your take on what you're looking for in camp and the offensive line group?
Yeah, it's the most interesting of all the groups by far. I mean, any group where you have 5 starters and probably 4 of them are going to be new is always going to be interesting, especially when, even with all these new faces, a lot of times you'll redo a line, reupholster a line, and you'll know who the 3 new guys are slated to be. And right now we know that probably Dawkins is starting, probably at left tackle, and we know that Mitch Morse is starting at center. And other than that, we really don't know. In the embedded series, right in the beginning, they were talking about free agency and how good Ty Nsekhe from Washington fits in at right tackle. Cody Ford is a guy that it was seen maybe as a guard or a tackle, but most people seem to think he was going to be a right tackle. We signed a bevy of guards, some of them that can play center, some of them that can't, with Long and Feliciano and Quentin Spain. We drafted Wyatt Teller last year, so it is a really interesting group. We didn't mention Adrian Waddle as maybe a 4th tackle, maybe a 3rd tackle if you move somebody inside. But he was a Patriot. He's been a guy in the league for a while.
Been a decent swing tackle.
I would say better than a lot of the other choices that we have picked up as back end of the roster guys in free agency or in the middle of the season in past seasons. And this is a guy who I'd say is going to have a tough time making the team. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, they obviously picked him up for a reason, but he's certainly going to have a fight.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a head up, though. I mean, I think his main competition was Jeremiah Sirles, and he's got a head up right now with Sirles being hurt. I think that's really a good swing tackle battle. I don't see there's any way you keep Ford and Nsekhe off the starting line together, so whether one of those 2 go to right guard, we might have to see happen, but I really love this group. This is the group. I think some of the names in the back end of this roster were better than the Bills started last year. The Felicianos, who was apparently your starting center when Morse was, rehabbing that groin.
Yeah.
And Bodine was hurt as well. And I can't remember. I think there was someone else hurt, but really Feliciano was a guy that they signed him to a 2-year deal. He's definitely going to be a guy that they versatile. They want active on game days. If he's not a starter, he's definitely going to be the sixth offensive lineman, the Ryan Groy kind of player, guard and center, to be active on game days. I'm just shocked, Jason, they kept Russell Bodine and Vlad Dukas to this point. I mean, many thought those were free. You know, that's about $3 or $4 million you can free up in cap space, and they can still free it up as long as it's rolled over prior to week 1 of the NFL season. So they can cut these guys. But I'm absolutely shocked that those two are still on the roster, specifically with the money they put on Morris and Spain and Feliciano and the interior. Spencer Long even's a versatile guard who might be get kicked to the 6th or 7th offensive line spot if Inseki and Ford start. So, I mean, it's a really good unit. I mean, Waddell's better than anything that started last year at some of the position groups, and he might not make the team. So that I think that goes to speak to the depth of this unit. And some of these starters are vying for even roster spots here. And really the only new name that isn't a for sure to make this roster is Garrett McGinn, a college free agent. Really, they kept the guys they wanted to keep, went out and spent some money on guys that are probably going to make the team, and then kind of held on to some of the old names. So it's an interesting unit that has a lot of talent. So, I mean, even I think pundits are calling it a top 12 units as what I've read so far. So, I mean, if they finish between 10 and 15 on offensive line groups, I mean, that's a remarkable upgrade.
It's a huge improvement, and I do think that was their goal with this money, and it showed. They, really only went and got one big free agent offensive lineman, and then after that, I think they took the approach of we're only going to be as good as our worst player on this line, and we've seen decent offensive lines really get spoiled by one bad guard, one bad tackle, 2 of them, and I think they said we're going to create competition and we're going to 5 guys that we know belong on the field on Sundays starting in the NFL, and we're going to do that partially through camp. And I think they have enough talent and enough guys who aren't weak links that they're going to figure out a full offensive line. And if there's any problem, it's really going to be just figuring out how they're going to gel that quickly. That is sometimes a problem, but I think they're going to do everything in their possible, anything they possibly can to make sure that this group goes well.
Yeah, and I think the thing they did do with this group was raise the floor. I think that there's a remarkably decent floor that even if we'll just say Spencer Long is struggling, you go right to John Feliciano, and Seki or whatever it is that the starting 5 happens to be. I think you have room to move guys around who are going to compete all year. You're going to have a top 9 that's pretty decent, and if someone struggles, you plug them right out. I mean, I think the floor is pretty high, and I think it has a pretty decent ceiling. I mean, you're talking about, the ceiling could be really high. I mean, you're talking about, Cody Ford could end up being a really good tackle. Dawkins could turn it on this year. I really like Quentin Spain. Mitch Morse is one of the best centers in the league. I mean, if they figure out the right guard spot and Ty Inseki, a guy who's only played like 4 or 5 years in the NFL, even though he's 30, he's pretty old. I mean, you saw that featured on Embedded, 34 years old. I think he's only played like 4 or 5 accrued NFL seasons. So
yeah, he got a late start. He did some arena, I believe. He's really bounced around, and they got a real gem, and he's been able to fill in for Trent Williams and Morgan Moses when they've been hurt for Washington over the last couple of years, and filled in really seamlessly to the point where he was a priority free agent this year, even though being a little older and having a limited amount of starts. I think he had a really good reputation around the league and was signing that a lot of people applauded.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's a unit that everyone needs to be. I mean, tweeted us once again, Kevin Jason show. What is your starting 5 offensive line? I know Cover One dropped their starting offensive line. I've seen them do different games and stuff where they plug and play different players, but I want to see what your starting 5 offensive line is here. Tweeted at me, and then I think just as fun as that is who's the 9 to make the roster. I mean, I could have different like 3 or 4 variations, and that's really never common, Jason. Usually, hey, maybe 1 guy or 2 guys may or may not make the roster, and that's pretty normal. But to have like multiple variations of a top 9, and the back 4 backups of the offensive line, it's pretty rare for us here in Buffalo. So. Tweeted us your starting offensive line, and then if you want, maybe your top 9. So once again, we'll look forward to seeing that. And did want to take a quick time to mention the Cover One premium content. Check that out. There's different levels. I mean, you can be, there's a ton of great content over there, and for a short, really inexpensive fee, you can be a part of the Slack group. You can ask us questions, ask us for exclusive articles. there's really cool things going on over there. So make sure, you take a quick moment to go check out the Cover One premium content if you haven't already. There's a lot of good stuff over there, and right on the Cover One app. So make sure you take full advantage of the great content that's getting pumped out of that site, not just from our show, but from the other podcasts and the other content, whether it's video content, chop ups. I mean, there's no one better than making those mashups than those guys over there. So make sure you take a moment to check that out. And kind of lastly, Jason, I wanted to get your opinion on the Embedded show. I mean, it's kind of all the rage yesterday. It was almost like its own mini All or Nothing, I guess would be.
Yeah, it was
more like All or
Bill's
Nothing
event.
Yeah, it's more like All or Nothing.
Yeah, I think it's pretty comparable. I've seen a lot of other teams have similar shows. I've watched one weekly that the Cardinals do, the Browns do a good one. So it's been very interesting to see how other teams and their front offices seem to work. But unfortunately, I ran into a problem yesterday. I was about to go to bed, and I had seen that Bills Embedded had come up, and I said, I'm so excited for this. I'm ready for this. I'm going to watch the episode tomorrow after I get out of work, before I get on with Kevin. Inaugural show. Let's go. I look at it this morning, and they put out all 4 episodes in a row. Did they say they were going to do that?
They must be trying to copy the All or Nothing model. I'm telling you. They did it weekly last year, if I'm not mistaken.
I think they did it weekly last year. All these other teams are doing it weekly, and they're putting out like a Cobra Kai setup where they're putting it all out at once, and now I got to watch it all at once. So what I managed to do is come up with the top 5. I wanted to do our first segment of the inaugural show, and it's called the top 5 most important parts of the first 16 minutes of episode 1 of season 2 of Bills Embedded.
Okay.
You ready for this?
That's
it. 16 minutes. Let's go. Number 1, we're about 10 seconds in, and we get the happy birthday to Sean McDermott. We see the wardrobes of the guys, and they are very fitting. Josh Allen, sport coat. He's our starting quarterback. Micah Hyde, muscle shirt. He's trying to show it off. He's got huge biceps. Stephen Hauschka, sexy V-neck. He knows he's making money right now, and he's a kicker. He's trying to show it off. Matt Barkley, flannel. Kind of weird for a California guy, but I think it just shows kind of his chill vibe. I don't know if flannel's unexpected from Matt Barkley. I don't know if he was the one I was going to pick, but I think it shows a lot about those guys just based on wardrobe. Number 4, Kyle Williams, narrator. We have a narrator this year. What do you think of Kyle Williams?
I mean, he was reading off a script. You could kind of tell.
He's not exactly like a box of electric in there. I'm trying to decide if his southern accent makes us more gritty or if we should go with like a gritty Buffalo type to do it. I'm glad they went with Kyle instead of, say, John Murphy, but he might have to bring a little more. You've seen the rest of the show. Does it come up from the 16 minutes I watched?
He says pretty similar to that.
I feel like, I'm starting to get going in this podcast. I'm just wondering if maybe as Bills Embedded went along, he started to maybe grow more into his role. Maybe somebody told him that, hey, bring up the energy, Kyle.
He actually makes fun of himself kind of in the outtakes of the last episode, and I think there's future outtakes and probably more to come out. But he's like, yeah, I don't think anyone in Buffalo is really that interested in listening to me. But he's an icon. I liked it. It was kind of funny because I'm used to John Hamm, who's a really good narrator on the All or Nothing series. So
yeah,
or my guy Leif Schreiber, doesn't he? He does all Hard Knocks, doesn't he?
I'm really bad at being able to tell voiceovers, but considering that he is an HBO contracted actor, I would say he would probably be a good choice.
I'm almost positive of that, but I'll have to fact check myself. Anyways, right. You're really good narrators.
Number 3, we're only halfway through this thing. Number 3, Lorenzo Alexander. You might call him the quarterback of the defense, the quarterback of special teams. He's also the quarterback of Orchard Park Town Roadways. He's telling people that they can't be texting and driving, gives a light little beep, not too much to scare them off, not too much to incite anger, just enough to say, hey, man, I'm going to just motivate you a little bit, get the car moving. I got to take my kids to the Catholic Church so we can go play basketball. Number 2, Shaq Lawson, going up the mountain. I don't know if it's a good sign that he's gassed halfway up the mountain and couldn't get up there. Do you take anything from that?
A little bit, I think. I think that I noticed that he said he couldn't get up there.
He kind of blamed it on the heights, but
does take a photo shoot with a random fan that really random. So took a little break there. Yeah, that's not great. I mean, I don't know that I care per se, but I mean,
I
Mr.
just
Lawson.
I'm just saying that I wouldn't be able to get up the mountain. I'm not even sure if I was Shaq Lawson if I would will myself up the mountain. I might
Mhm.
just leave that out of on on the cutting floor.
Okay, that's fine.
Just because of the optics, you're battling for a job right now. You're trying to get some new money. Either go up the mountain or say that I'm going to save my body on this one.
He's in a contract year, so you should probably get out the mountain.
Number one, this wasn't even in the 16 minutes that I watched, but I saw it on Facebook. I saw your wife and my friend Amanda tweeting about it. Micah Hyde, is it a purse? Is it not a purse?
I
And
don't.
is it acceptable anyways?
I don't personally see it as a purse because of the way it hangs, the style of it. It's Nike. Um,
The Nike's important, I feel like. There's no Nike
More
purses as
athletic,
far as I know. Yeah.
practical, athletic, not a fanny pack either.
It's vertical instead of horizontal.
Yep. I, you know what? I'm going to be on team Micah Hyde, not Amanda Hyde, his wife, and
Yes.
say that it isn't a purse. I think it's different. I think it's more versatile. I really look at it more as a really unique traveling item for your passport and other goodies.
Yeah, I don't think we should be shaming male travelers.
No.
I think that they do need a bag, and I know fanny packs really make you look like a dork, even though I am a big fanny pack guy.
Yeah.
Uh,
They're coming
but
back.
I've been called out on the fanny packs multiple times, and this seems like a more economical way of doing it. I would just say, hey man, that's a smart idea. You don't want to get your stuff stolen. You don't want to put everything in your pockets. Maybe you get on the train, maybe you get on the plane, stuff falls out of it,
Mhm.
and you have a little extra room. If we're gonna shame people for that, then why even travel? So
Right.
whether you call it a merce, whether you don't call it a merce, I'm gonna say that Micah Hyde is a smart traveler, and his passport isn't getting left anywhere.
Well, that was Jason's top three things from the first 16 minutes of episode one of season
Top
two.
five.
Top five, sorry, of season two,
Episode
embedded.
one,
Episode one,
Agents
first
of
16 minutes.
Change
Yep.
of Bills Embedded. Yes.
So we're going to get Jason's top in the next episode on Thursday. We're going to get Jason's top remaining items of the rest of the series. So you're going to have to do the last 10 minutes plus the next three episodes. So top
That's
10
a lot
things.
to fit into five, man.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll give you 10.
No, nobody wants 10. I'll do
Okay.
five. That's fine.
Just five, and you're gonna have the rest of the show. But there were the first episode was pretty personalized and a lot about the players and their lives and stuff. It starts to get into a little bit more Bean and McDermott and the draft and combine, etc. Some more Bills related news coming out of that. Interesting to me is that it's been talked about a lot now. Some of my notes and nuggets out of this were the want for the undrafted free agents. I mean, they put it all out press on Sirles. Basically, I mean, they really went after only a few key undrafted free agents. There is a cap on how much signing bonus money you can give these guys. Bill said, and we had these draft picks. We spent a lot in free agency. We're really going to go spend a couple of bucks on just like a few players, which I always think is smart in undrafted free agency. We're not going to take the buckshot approach of signing 20 guys like some teams might, and hopefully one or two of them are good. I mean, they went out and tried to key in on their couple of key players. You got Juwan Foggy, who's a guy I've heard good things about. Terrell Dodson too. So there's that. You have Tyree Jackson, obviously a guy that they featured in the show, and I believe in episode one, Jason, if you haven't gotten there yet, there's a little bit of, they'll show his footage a little bit.
He wasn't in the first 16. So.
Okay, so he's coming soon.
Yeah.
David Sills, another guy they featured in that same segment, showing his film and footage. Two guys they had on the draftable list. And then Nick Easley, a receiver as well, coming into a room where anything could happen at that receiver group. I mean, I think that each of them, I even heard things from Victor Bolden Jr. out of OTA. So I think that anyone can make this as a sixth wide receiver there. So that'll be interesting. But the full court press on David Sills was very interesting. A guy that, if you watch that and how much this team wanted him, Jason, you would have to say he has a leg up on making the roster. It's that vivid, and I think it is for anyone who really watches this scene and or episode. I believe it was episode 2. I can't recall. It's all one to me. So the full court press and David Sills, I think that Tyree Jackson has a place on the roster. I don't know. I mean, I got into this discussion a couple of months ago now, and then to my benefit, Derek Anderson went and retired, and really making it a really a press on a guy that they gave a full max deal to, quote unquote max deal of an undrafted free agent for signing bonus money. And a guy that, I don't know. I mean, if a team's desperate, they might pluck him off your practice squad. So we'll see how he does. If nothing else, it'll be a really interesting preseason games there. So it's just a full court press on these undrafted free agents. It was cool to see Cody Ford pretty much be the guy this regime really wanted. I think they really were going to try to get into the first round, get that 5th-year option if they could get into the back end of the first round, probably pay a little bit more than they did for Cody Ford. And they really thought, I don't think it was just gamesmanship, Jason. I don't know if you've seen the clip yet. It wasn't just unvetted.
Yeah, I saw it a while ago. I think they had released it after the draft about how elated Bean was that Greg Little got taken instead of him. He thought he was done, and after that really put him into full motion. And there is a decent chance that they really needed to go up those 2 picks.
I think there is. They're convinced that the next pick would have been him. So, and then his face when he was like, Little? Okay, Little. And then he just his eyes just lit up when someone when I think it was Shane told him that it was Little. He was like, Little? And then truthful that to me that they really did. It wasn't one of those situations where it was like, Little got picked. We're going to have to go with Ford now. I truly believe that they had Ford as their top player available going into day 2. So that's pretty interesting. And then Ed Oliver, I truly believe he was really high on their list. Was he number 1 on their list? Nah, that's tough to say. Was he top 3 or 4 on their list? I think that's true. I mean, I think he admits that he was trying to come up a little bit at points, probably for Williams.
Daniel Jones probably wasn't.
The top 3. They were convinced when Daniel Jones went that they were going to stay there and take a player. So if Ed Oliver had gone instead of Hawkinson, Jason, was the guy Jonah Williams? What was the play who's now hurt? They were convinced that they had a pick ready to go. They didn't need to trade back at that point. So it wasn't just Ed Oliver. Do you think it was Jonah Williams, number 2?
I famously called the shot that it was going to be Jonah Williams no matter what in Senior Bowl time, I guess, or before that. Hurt. And he's now hurt, and I mean, you don't know what's going to happen if he gets into a different situation. There's many different ways that life can go, but there's a pretty decent chance he would have been hurt here, and that would have been really terrible. And right now we have a healthy Ed Oliver, who I think is a better player anyways, and I'm really positive about that. But yeah, I think they were really high in Jonah Williams. I think there's a chance they were high in Hawkinson. I thought I saw another video that Bean was either like playing a poker face or just didn't seem very facially interested in TJ Hawkinson. And I know the facial analysis isn't exactly my profession, but it seemed like when he started talking about guys like Ed Oliver, he was a lot more excited. I'll say that.
Yeah, and then, the Bengals go and have the 2017 Buffalo Bills offensive line with Cordy Glenn and John Miller and others. So, but yeah, I mean, I think that they also had a deal on the table for, they showed on the screen, it was, they would have dropped down to, I thought it said to 11. I don't know how this would have worked, but then they would have 11, 37, and 40 somehow. So that would have been kind of interesting that how that would have worked out if Oliver wasn't there. But this is really good insight into the embedded show, and we'll bring it up next time just to get your final 5.
There's a lot there. I think we could squeeze a lot out of that, and we're probably going to have to for the next week or so. So
yeah, I want to grab that on the next show. I mean, we're going to definitely grab. Next Thursday will be right at the start of camp. So we definitely are going to grab some really good storylines, any good injury news, any good transactions or things that they say coming out. We're going to get into all of that. We're definitely going to get into, maybe we'll have another fun segment or 2 we'll get into. And then, we'll probably finish it off with, probably some meet and greets, the Cover One teams getting together. So we'll have some interesting stuff out of that. And then we'll be at camp. I know I will, at least a lot of it. I know you're going to try to make a day. If you can, and gonna have some so we'll be there at least on hand trying to pick up our stuff from the sidelines, whatever we can. And hey, you never know what extra nuggets we're going to throw at you, but we really appreciate everyone tuning into this inaugural episode of the Kevin and Jason Show, presented by Cover One. And as always, please check out the Cover One premium subscriber list and all the exclusive great benefits you get out of that, and then the mobile app. as well as stay with us all season. We're going to be twice a week. We think it's a good, sweet spot number of great content without boring you guys. So once again, we really appreciate the loyal followers to our shows and our show in the past, and sticking with us in this new endeavor that we're going to be here for the foreseeable future, Jason. So from the Kevin and Jason show, I'm Kevin, and that's Jason.
Thanks, guys.